Hollywood, a world of glitz, glamour, and golden statues. But behind the curtain of red carpets and flashing cameras lies a far less glamorous truth. Egos clash. Tempers flare, and not every co-star gets along. Few Hollywood stars have ever been as fearless or as brutally honest about this reality as Debra Winger. At 70 years old, the Oscar-nominated actress is finally speaking openly about the 6 actors she absolutely hated working with. Some names will surprise you. Others, the rumors have been around for decades. But when the truth comes directly from Debra herself, it takes on a whole new weight. Today, we dive deep into Debra Winger's life, her fiery reputation, and the 6 co-stars who made her life on set miserable. Before we reveal the names, let's step back. Who exactly is Debra Winger, and why did she become one of Hollywood's most talked about stars in the first place? Born in Cleveland Heights, Ohio in 1955, Debra didn't exactly have the traditional path to stardom. She grew up in a Jewish family, rebellious and strong-willed. At just 18, a near-fatal car accident left her blind and partially paralyzed for months. Doctors weren't sure she'd ever fully recover. But Debra didn't. The experience changed her forever. She later said that surviving such trauma gave her a deep sense of determination. She wasn't going to waste her life pretending or following rules she didn't believe in. By the late 1970s, she was cast in the TV show Wonder Woman as Drusilla, Wonder Woman's younger sister. It wasn't a huge role, but it opened doors. Soon, Debra's raw talent began turning heads in Hollywood. Her breakthrough came with the 1980 film Urban Cowboy, opposite John Travolta. She was magnetic, fierce, authentic, and impossible to ignore. Audiences connected with her, and critics declared her one of the most promising actresses of her generation. What followed was a string of powerhouse performances: An Officer and a Gentleman in 1982, Terms of Endearment in 1983, and later Shadowlands in 1993. 3 Academy Award nominations cemented her status as one of Hollywood's elite, but while Winger's talent was undeniable, her fiery personality earned her another reputation, one that would follow her for decades: difficult, outspoken, and impossible to control. And nowhere was this more obvious than in her relationships with her co-stars. Let's be clear, when Hollywood calls a woman difficult, it often means she refused to stay silent. And Debra Winger was never silent. She didn't smile just to make directors happy. She didn't flatter egos. She certainly didn't hide her dislike for co-stars who rubbed her the wrong way, unlike many actresses of her era. She wasn't afraid to walk off a set, call out bad behavior, or admit sometimes publicly that she hated working with someone. As a result, tabloids labeled her as temperamental. Producers whispered that she was a nightmare. But the truth: Debra Winger was simply honest in an industry built on fakery. This honesty created legend stories about fights on set, screaming matches in trailers, and rivalries that spilled into award shows. What all comes down to the 6 co-stars she absolutely despised.
Oh.
Let's reveal the names of the 6 actors who crossed paths with Debra Winger and left her with nothing but resentment. One of the biggest hits of the 1980s was An Officer and a Gentleman. On screen, Richard Gere and Debra Winger shared an undeniable chemistry. Their love story made audiences swoon, and the film remains iconic to this day. Behind the scenes, things were very different. Debra Winger later admitted she hated working with Gere. She thought he was wooden, cold, and more concerned about his looks than the scene itself. She once described him as a brick wall, unemotional and unresponsive. Their on-screen passion was pure acting, because off-screen, Winger reportedly couldn't stand him. To make matters worse, Winger also clashed with director Taylor Hackford. Calling him an animal, she said the only reason she delivered such a strong performance was because of the real anger and frustration she felt on set. So while the world remembers An Officer and a Gentleman as a love story, Winger remembers it as one of the most miserable experiences of her career, thanks in large part to Richard Gere. If you've ever seen Terms of Endearment, you know the chemistry between Shirley MacLaine and Debra Winger was electric. The film won multiple Oscars, including Best Picture and both women were nominated for Best Actress. But behind the cameras, their relationship was toxic. McClane was already an established star, while Winger was the rising newcomer. Their rivalry exploded into fights, insults, and even physical tension. At one point, rumors spread that Winger punched McClane during filming, though Winger later denied it. McClane once admitted in an interview it was a very tough shoot, and Debra was very difficult. Winger, for her part, said the two had a very volatile relationship. But the truth is clear. They hated each other still. Their hatred created movie magic. Their tension was so real that it fueled their performances, making Terms of Endearment one of the greatest dramas of the 1980s. Sometimes hate, it seems, is just as powerful on screen as love. Winger's breakout role in Urban Cowboy was opposite John Travolta, who was already a star after Saturday Night Fever in Grease. At first, fans thought their pairing was perfect. Travolta, the smooth leading man; Winger, the fiery newcomer. But on set, things soured quickly. Winger reportedly found Travolta arrogant, too full of himself, and difficult to take seriously. She felt he coasted on charm rather than hard work, while she threw herself into her role with intensity. Travolta, for his part, never spoke harshly about Winger, but insiders have claimed their lack of chemistry off-screen made filming tense. Winger, never one to hide her feelings, later admitted she didn't enjoy working with him. Urban Cowboy made her a star, but it also marked the first of many times she walked away from a set with resentment toward her co-star. Fast forward to 1993, and Winger starred opposite Anthony Hopkins in Shadowlands, a moving biographical drama about the writer C.S. Lewis. Hopkins is widely regarded as one of the greatest actors of all time, but according to Winger, working with him was far from enjoyable. She once claimed that Hopkins was cold and unapproachable. While Hopkins believed in staying in character and keeping his distance, Winger found it frustrating and isolating. She preferred collaboration, connection, and emotional exchange. Hopkins's aloofness felt like arrogance to her, though their performances were brilliant. The film earned Winger another Academy Award nomination. She later admitted that the experience left her drained. Hopkins may be a legend, but for Debra Winger, he was just another co-star she couldn't stand. In 1986, Winger starred opposite Robert Redford in Legal Eagles, a romantic comedy drama. On paper, it was a dream pairing, the Hollywood golden boy with the fiery actress. But reality was less glamorous. Winger described Redford as condescending, claiming he often acted like he was doing her a favor by being in the film with her. She felt he was dismissive of her talent and treated her as if she were just another supporting player rather than his equal. For a Winger who prided herself on her craft, Redford's attitude was insulting. After Legal Eagles, she reportedly vowed never to work with him again. Their lack of chemistry was obvious on screen, and the film itself flopped critically. It was yet another reminder that Winger's honesty often came at a price. Though Winger slowed down her career in the 90s, she occasionally returned for select projects. In the 2000s, she worked alongside younger actors including Adrien Brody. Winger, by then more seasoned, found Brody immature, self-absorbed, and overly method in his acting style. She reportedly said she couldn't connect with him because he was too wrapped up in himself. For Winger, acting was about connection, truth, and partnership. With Brody, she felt like she was acting alone, carrying the emotional weight, while he focused more on his image as an artistic genius. It may not have been as explosive as her early now. At 70 years old, Debra Winger looks back at her career with a mix of pride and defiance. She doesn't apologize for the way she acted. She doesn't regret speaking out. In fact, she believes it was her honesty that made her performances so powerful. While Hollywood labeled her as difficult, she sees herself as someone who refused to compromise. And in a business built on fake smiles and empty compliments, that honesty made her stand out. Today, she admits she didn't love many of her co-stars, and she doesn't care if the world knows it. For Winger, the only thing that mattered was staying true to herself. Debra Winger's story is a reminder that Hollywood isn't all lights and glamour. Behind the scenes, real people clash, egos collide, and truth sometimes cuts deeper than fiction. At 70, Debra Winger has nothing left to prove. She's free to admit what so many stars never will. She hated working with certain actors, and she's not afraid to say their names, love her or hate her. Debra Winger remains one of Hollywood's most authentic voices. And maybe that's why even after years away from the spotlight, people are still talking about her today.